Step for us here in November, Matt. Thank you. Let's get to the news now. Ogden police say a man in his 20s was shot and killed by officers after he pointed a gun at them and refused to follow their demands. News specialist Shelby Lofton now breaks down the details.
This happened early Sunday morning around 1 a.m. and the Ogden City Police Chief told us that officers have responded to other calls at this house before involving this same man who was shot. Neighbors we talked to said that they were very upset over his death.
I think it's upset us all.
People living on Eccles Avenue said they didn't expect to see this situation escalate in the middle of their street overnight.
Well, it was so close.
Linda Larson woke up to find a bullet hole in her garage door. She says police told her it came from an officer-involved shooting next door.
We're just trying to kind of work through it, and discover what's really happened.
Ogden Police Chief Eric Young said a woman called 911 asking for help with an intoxicated man at her home who had a gun.
He told the female if she called the police that he'd handle it himself and take himself out when the officers came to the house.
Police said they know this man.
The same male had threatened to use firearms against himself and the police department.
Larson said she believes the young man was living with his mom in this house.
They seem to always be arguing and fighting and having troubles between them.
She's seen police at their door many times.
It's happened before. They've had problems before.
Chief Young said the man was standing in front of the house holding a handgun when officers pulled up.
The man pointed the handgun at officers repeatedly and ignored numerous commands to drop the firearm.
Chief Young said that's when all 7 officers fired shots.
They struck the suspect and he died immediately at the scene.
Police said at this point they aren't aware of the suspect firing any shots. They said he had previous violent felonies and was not supposed to have any firearms. All of the officers at this scene are on paid leave while the Weber County Attorney's Office investigates what happened on this road.
It takes a few days, a few hours to find out how we feel about things. We're all upset.
Chief Young told us he expects the suspect's name will be released later this week. And we also know that body cameras were on while the shooting took place. That video will likely show and reveal a lot more about what took place in this Ogden neighborhood. In Ogden, Shelby Lofton, KSL-5 News.
Shelby, thank you. An 88-year-old driver is dead.
Possibility of a right on red ban.
An investigation is underway in Ogden after a deadly officer-involved shooting there. Police say a woman called 911 Sunday morning about a man with a gun in her house. Neighbors believe the man in his 20s. This is the son of the woman who also lives there.
They seem to always be arguing and fighting and having troubles between them. It's happened before. They've had problems before.
The department says that man previously had some violent felonies and was not supposed to have guns. They say the man pointed a handgun at officers several times and refused to drop it. All 7 officers on scene fired shots, killing that man. They are currently on paid leave while the incident is being investigated. The suspect's name is expected to be released later on this week.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken landed in Turkey, turning at red lights.
An investigation is underway in Ogden after a deadly officer-involved shooting there. Here's what we know. Police say a woman called 911 Sunday morning about a man with a gun inside of her home. Neighbors believe the man in his 20s is the son of a woman who also lives there. Police say it had previous, that man had previous violent felonies. He was not supposed to have any guns. Again, we are working to get more information on that. We do not have that man's identity right now. We know that he was told to drop the gun several times, refused to do so. 7 officers on scene are on paid leave, again, while that incident is being reviewed.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State
starts now.
Good evening. Shattered glass and windows at Governor Spencer Cox's campaign office. The suspect is a man the governor says has targeted him and his family before.
News specialist Dan Rascone is covering this story, and he joins us live. Dan, as far as you know, this man hasn't been booked into custody.
Yes, that's correct, and that's according to police right now. And this is a scene of where it all happened. Here along Social Avenue in downtown Salt Lake, you can see the front door here all boarded up. And the man accused of targeting the governor now apparently back on the streets.
A disturbing scene for the campaign staff of Governor Spencer Cox, arriving to find their office vandalized.
Salt Lake City's better than this.
Ava Lopez Chavez, who lives downtown and worked for Salt Lake for 10 years, just happened to be walking by this morning, seeing the aftermath.
This is, to me, symbolic of the hatred that reaps still in our community.
According to police, it all started at the Capitol about 10:45 last night, when they found a man they are very familiar with climbing a wall and suffering from a serious mental health crisis.
Last night was very elevated, and the troopers believed he was in a mental crisis based on his demeanor had changed.
Troopers say the man, Samuel Zunn, told them what he did to the governor's campaign office.
This individual, he does have mental illness history, and it doesn't sound like he is on his medication. I don't think there's any direct threat that we're aware of, but we are investigating that. We're following up with his family and trying to determine if there is.
But on social media, Governor Cox characterized it much more serious, saying this person had targeted me and my family before, and fortunately is now in custody. But we don't know if he is in custody. He was taken to LDS Hospital for a mental evaluation, but never taken into custody by police. Troopers say they plan to definitely follow up.
We're going to do everything we can to intervene, whether it's with, professional intervention, contacting the family, trying to find out what the diagnosis has been previously.
And according to the Department of Public Safety, they say that this man has come to the Capitol several times before and been very vocal, kind of against the governor, and that's why they are very familiar with him. He could face some serious charges in the future there, but again, we don't know whether or not he's been released from the hospital. Mike, back to you.
Yeah, hopefully he gets the help that he needs. All right, Dan Rascone live tonight. Dan, thank you. Just into the newsroom here tonight, we have learned 2 people.